And we're back with Schrager Slachter for another topic about our emotions. So, a person has intellect and a person has emotions. Does one control the other?
Well, emotions is what always wins. Intellect is nice, but it's also affected from emotions. Everything starts, it ends with emotions. So even when we have an intellectual idea, it comes from our emotional feelings. Why just now we came up with this emotional idea, like this intellect idea? If you wake up one day and you have this intellect idea, ask yourself what emotional need or what emotional feeling triggered that idea. So we are emotional creatures. Everything we say or do comes from emotions. Intellect is nice, but emotions take it by far.
So our emotions govern us. It literally takes effect over everything we do. The way I move, the way I speak, that's all connected to how I feel.
Everything. Even to the level of energy that you put in the question you asked me. See, you could ask a question like this, or you could ask a question like this. What makes you decide how much energy to put in a question? And what makes you decide which words to use in a question or in anything you say? Emotions govern us to the resolution of every word we choose in our vocabulary. If you speak on the phone and you tell somebody, okay, goodbye, see you. Why'd you say goodbye, see you? Why didn't you say just goodbye? Because you didn't feel secure enough just to say goodbye. You needed another word to defend yourself. That word is control. You remember there's a fear and the need of saying another word. That's because you're using the aspect of control. So body language and vocabulary, anything you do, anything you say comes and starts from the meaning of security.
Like you just went 1, 2, 3, body language. Even that's governed by your emotions?
Everything emotions.
Wow. So can one ever have just a conversation, an argument that has nothing to do with how they feel?
What do you think, Marty?
I don't know. You tell me.
No, based on what we just said. What do you think?
It sounds like not.
Sure not.
It sounds like everything that we do, even if I get into an argument with somebody, it's all based on how I feel. Even if I'm thinking something, I have this idea, and I start arguing about it. That's all governed by my emotions, not how I think.
Even what you asked me. Now you're asking me that question. You could think that your intellectual question is everything guided, but you had an emotion that triggered that question. What did you feel when everything is guided by emotion? Maybe you felt insecure. How could that be? There's no objective. Everything is subjective. Yes, everything is subjective. When people argue, there's a lot of different levels of security. That means there's the subject itself, what they're arguing about, and then there's the need to argue. There's the energy that we put in the argument. Now, why are we putting that energy inside? We're trying to convince the other person. We're trying to be right. We're defending ourselves. That means in an argument, two people are defending themselves. I'm secure. They're saying I'm secure. They're talking about any subject we're talking about, but really what they're saying is they're trying to defend their own fears that they feel inside, and by talking about the subject. That's why they put energy inside. Because if not, I would say what I think about it, any subject. You would say what you think about a subject, and we wouldn't put inside energy. The energy is basically defense mechanism. So that's one level. But the other level is even what I think about a specific subject comes from an emotional need. Like this, let's say, for example, I decide that we have to be vegetarian. Let's say I want to be vegetarian, and and you like steaks. Remember we talked about steaks? So we're arguing. Now you have a reason why you like steaks, and I have a reason why I'm vegetarian. And it's not intellectual reason, it's an emotional reason. Why I feel why they kill animals, for example. Why does it bother me that they kill animals? They bother me because of a different fear that I have. That means we could argue about anything we argue about, but the bottom line is my feelings of security, my things that give me secure, things that take away that feeling, and your emotional world of security that clashes in argument.
So when I'm arguing with you, and I guess I'm feeling something really, really big inside, and you say something, and it really, 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 really bothers me deeply, and I lash back out of you much stronger than you are. Is that a disproportionate way of responding to you?
Disproportionate. It's so amazing what you're asking me, because there's no such a thing disproportionate. If you acted a certain way, It was because you had a certain feeling that triggered that defense mechanism. Now, fear triggers control. The more fear you have, the more control you need to defend that fear. Like if we, example, compare this to numbers. If the fear is 47, the control will be 47. If the fear is 47.3, the control will be 47.3. It'll be exact. That means it's not even, you won't use even 1 centimeter more of defense than the fear that you feel. For someone else looking at you from the outside, they could judge you and say, well, what kind of disproportional reaction? But that's because I don't have the same emotional world than you have. And what you acted, the way you reacted, made me fear, made me scared. And I'm defending myself by judging you. Any times that we judge other people, it's because we feel insecure about someone's defense mechanism.
So there's no situation where I could really judge anybody else for the way that they think or feel or do anything.
Not even anybody else. You can't even judge yourself. Because when you act a certain way, it's because in that specific moment you had a certain fear and you needed to defend yourself in that specific way. But it could be a few minutes later, like remember we brought the example of steak? After you ate the steak, you tell yourself, why did I eat the steak in the beginning?
Yeah, sometimes we do feel judgmental.
Yeah, but that's because we don't accept that in the moment that we made that choice, the defense was proportional to the fear that we felt. When you saw that steak and you wanted to eat that steak, you had a fear of not eating that steak. Now that you ate it already, you're judging yourself based on now that you're full on what you felt before. And you can't judge, not yourself and not somebody else.
So if I'm stuck in an argument with somebody,
yeah,
and I find myself really, really getting heated up in the argument,
mm-hmm.
What causes that? What causes that passion? What causes that fury sometimes or excitement?
Because the argument basically is something that he said or the topic created fear by you. And you're defending yourself. And that defense mechanism is the emotions that you feel. The less you're afraid of what happened, the less you'll need to defend yourself in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. After hearing a good argument from somebody else,
mm-hmm.
a person then goes ahead and decides to think differently, to make a change.
Okay.
To act differently, to think differently.
Right.
What happens then? Why all of a sudden did he decide to make that sudden change? And what can he learn about himself from that change?
Well, what the person argued created a fear by me, and it's basically a dissonance the way I'm acting. Now that, let's say the person said something different the way I thought, and I feel that he's right in what he feels, and it basically created a fear by me that I'm acting a different way than I'm supposed to or than I want to. So then I change what I do. But
can you give an example?
And let's say I talk to you about the aspects of killing animals and why is it bad to kill animals, and I show you a video of how the animals are being tortured. So then it could trigger by you fear of different aspects of what does it mean by
oh my God, what am I doing to these poor animals?
Right. And then you could basically have that fear, and that fear could be very, very strong, stronger than the need of eating meat. And you could change your actions based on that.
Mm-hmm. So if a person has both a fear, and as you mentioned before, people also develop defense mechanisms throughout their lives.
Right.
How do those fears and defense mechanisms coexist with each other?
They're partners. That means, based on everything we said now, fear is the trigger of defense mechanism. Control is triggered just by fear. Anytime you feel a fear, it's how do you defend yourself from that fear? By defense mechanism. So it's basically a relationship that exists all our life. Fears, defense mechanism, control. The bigger the fear is, the bigger the need to defend ourselves.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, it sounds like when somebody interacts with somebody else, either as a friend or as a spouse,
right.
Parents, children, teachers, students, whatever it is, are those relationships simply based on fear? Does real love exist? Right. Or is everything based on dependency?
What do you want should be the answer? What?
I would love to hear that there is real love in this world.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Everything is dependency. But dependency is not necessarily a bad word. If two people are dependent to each other to reach a certain goal, and they help each other, so it's great. The problem is when dependency, one person feels dependent on another person, and the other person is less dependent, then there's all kinds of conflicts in relationship. But dependency is not a bad thing, and everything starts and ends with dependency.
Thank you, Shraga. I don't know about you, but I definitely feel connected to my emotions just a little bit more now after that conversation. Join us in the next chapter as we continue to explore this amazing world.